Welcome to revealing occlusions with 4D neural fields. Occlusions are everywhere. For example, when this red car becomes invisible, we know that it did not vanish in thin air, but in fact still exists behind the orange car. As this person crosses the street, many existing vision systems will not be able to represent or continue tracking him beyond this moment. And at this cluttered intersection, there are many partial and total occlusions happening simultaneously, in particular for the person in the middle. Even though object proneness is easy for humans, it is very hard for machines, and we argue that understanding object proneness is necessary for representing and acting upon complex dynamic situations such as these. The problem becomes more obvious when we look at the LiDAR point cloud, where we have these big gaps in space. So we are left wondering, how can we build a representation that makes objects persist? In order to recover the occlusion, we need a representation that is able to, first, find non-trivial correspondences between different points across time and space, and secondly, efficiently synthesize new points to fill in the missing regions. We formalize this as a dynamic scene completion task. Because we are working with multiple point cloud frames captured from a single view over time, our data is actually four-dimensional. Therefore, the representation has to be 4D as well. Our key idea is to model point clouds with a continuous representation. You can kind of think of pixel nerve for 3D plus time. We show that by incorporating attention mechanisms into a dynamic neural field, we can effectively ask questions to the neural network about what is happening at any point in space-time. First, we encode the inputs into this feature-wise point cloud, which can be projected to keys and values. Then, given a query coordinate of interest, we effectively use a learned form of interpolation among the relevant input features to eventually obtain output values corresponding to any task you might want to train for. For example, geometry completion will tell you what the occupancy is, and thus whether there exists a point or not, whether there exists an object or not at any point in space-time. We sample many such queries in parallel to generate full point clouds. The results look something like this. Given a single RGBD video, we perform dynamic scene completion, which means that the model creates a visual reconstruction of all static and moving objects within the scene. In particular, we predict geometry and colors even for regions that might be occluded instead of just for the visible points. The dataset that you see here is called Grader, which is based on Cater. Using the Carla simulator, we also generate a large number of complicated realistic driving scenarios. In this case, we perform semantic completion. And you can see that for cars and bicycles and many other things that are observed only sparsely in the input video, the prediction densely encodes the entire space-time volume and first infers the semantic category for both seen and hidden content within the scene. The output is a little bit noisier than before here, which reflects the tricky nature of the task. Now, let's focus on a clip that shows a highly challenging scenario involving the total occlusion of a person. The prediction clear shows an excellent recovery of the continued motion towards the left, even though we trained the network without enforcing any assumptions about the dynamics or the physics of the world. This suggests that our model has successfully learned a notion of object proneness to some extent. There are also failure cases. We find that our model is not perfect and tends to struggle with longer-term occlusions. Here, the motorcycle seems to somehow turn into a pedestrian and almost vanishes behind the car, again, due to the demanding and sometimes uncertain nature of the environment. To summarize, our contribution is threefold. We introduce a new task of dynamic scene completion, and we propose an attention-based model that integrates query-based neural fields with transformers for point clouds. But since the end goal is rather ambitious and the problem is far from solved, we also contribute 2 large-scale 3D video datasets for training and evaluating AI models with respect to occlusions, by which we hope to spur further research in the areas of object proneness and spatial temporal reasoning. If you're wondering about how exactly we supervise our model, how uncertainty is handled, the importance of time, and much more, please check out our paper for details. Finally, please visit our webpage to view more visualizations, to download the datasets, etc. Thank you for your attention.